Kirk and Carver Show. I'm Kirk, and he's Carver.
How's it going?
Welcome
Jeff.
to the new studio.
Yeah, it is. It's nice.
For all your viewing glory.
Yeah, and also for the audio glory of not hearing all of the nastiness with that plastic table.
You know what? We love some Costco action, but we needed to step our game up.
Yeah, look at this.
Insert some fresh. I don't know if you picked up on that on the last podcast. Did you just listen to it or did you watch it?
No, I watched it.
Did you notice any animation in there? Yeah, I caught you. You didn't watch it. There's a part where you do the fresh thing.
And you popped fresh in there. No, I do remember that.
Wasn't that fun?
It was like a quick, yes.
I feel like as I edit everything, if fresh ever comes up, now it's like 5 times already. I'm going to do it every single time.
We're going to have a lot of fresh pops in this episode, I feel like.
Yeah, I know. I think the ticker's now at 6, but...
Well, the nice thing about this is I just took a shower before, so I am super fresh coming into this episode. Because, yes, we built this whole thing. We built it, threw all the trash away, needed to take a little shower, and couldn't be more excited and ready to jump right in.
So, deliver. So, this is episode 4, part 2 of relationships.
Yes.
And today, or I'll say episode 3, we talked about trials and tribulations in past relationships and how that has sculpted our mindset and what we're actually looking for. Now, granted, I don't know about you, Carver, but I'm a very slow learner, and I need to do things the hard way for a really long time before I figure out, hey, maybe I should change my ways. So.
Well, the interesting half of that is I'm one of those slow learners that I think I'm a fast learner, but then once I actually realize that I didn't learn much, I have to circle back, and I did that many times. Yeah.
Yes.
Many times.
Yeah. So is life. We learn and live each and every day, and it's kind of what you glean from past relationships.
Yeah.
And, kind of in the pre-show when we were talking about. You had mentioned it's not necessarily about our partner, but there's more internal changes that need to occur within us.
Yeah.
And I think as we closed last week's episode, I alluded to the fact that hurt people. And if you're not emotionally stable or right in your own relationship or in your own self,
in your own life,
how can you go and love someone the appropriate way that God wants us to love others and to be loved on? Because we can't even acknowledge it.
Right, and like in a not a codependent, selfish, needy, just nasty way.
Boom.
Yeah, which is, I feel like, why so many times, it just doesn't work.
Codependent is such a strong word, but it is so accurate in today's society.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Let's be real.
And even in my own relationships, past relationships, I've been codependent in different relationships myself, and that's not healthy. So, kind of the quick teaser into what today will unfold.
Yeah.
And I just want to preface one thing. Kirk and Carver, we do not claim to know everything. We do not claim to be the relationship experts. Our podcast is really our journey and what we've learned, and the idea is to help inspire or help proactively give guidance to struggles that we've been through. So hopefully people listening, watching, don't have to go through those same struggles.
Yeah, I've always wanted my life to be like a testimony. I think, with Kirk's on the same path here, that if we can give you an opportunity to not, to hear something, and actually I spoke to a buddy of mine that listened to last week's episode, and he told me, he's like, yeah, I am in that nasty, terrible relationship, and, I was thinking about marriage and kind of getting pressured into it, and I'm like, well, that's great, let's talk about that some more so you don't fall into it further. And it was just super uplifting and motivating to know that, kind of the whole reason why we did this, even if it's just one person, it's kind of already working. So
no doubt. Yeah.
I'm excited to just keep that ball rolling.
Yeah. So good. Well, I'm glad to hear one of your buddies was able to glean something from episode 3. So here we are, episode 4.
Tools of success today, I think, is what we're trying to give you some tools to just get yourself ready to have a successful relationship, which we'll talk more about next week.
Yeah. And yeah, so this is probably we weren't sure exactly how long this relationship series was going to go for, but it definitely will be
3.
episode 5 before we truly land the plane on this. So so like, subscribe by all means.
Please.
It's quick and easy on your end, especially the 19. We love you, but
do.
we need that what's the word, algorithm to
get us, publish us a little more, right?
And,
get this hopefully helpful, inspiring message out to more people.
And I will say, in a very self-serving platform, Carver told me,
So you're not self-serving.
No. Carver told me once we go live on YouTube that this will be kind of a mini form of addiction, of checking how many watches, many likes, if there's any comments. And now it's like, I'm in between meetings, or I'm waiting for G to try on a sweater. I don't know. Whatever it is. I open up YouTube and I'm looking and I'm like,
analytics.
Yes, we're up to 42 views. Woo! I'm all jazzed about it. I'm doing like a little mini happy dance. The people at Nordstrom's are looking at me like, what's wrong with this fool over here?
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's dive right in, shall we?
Let's do it. So
how do we prepare ourselves for a relationship to be successful before it even starts, Jeff?
Well, back to kind of the prelude is you need to be healthy, mature, and confident in not only who you are as a person, but knowing that you are human, so you are going to make mistakes.
Right.
You are gonna sin. We all fall short of the glory of God. And if you have realistic expectations, and I think for me that's a big one, is setting realistic expectations.
Not only yourself, or
not only for myself, but my partner too. Actually, G, it's funny, we're talking about this right now. G and I had this very dialogue where this morning we had this dialogue about how I was raised with the mindset that I had to be perfect, and I had to walk in this very fine line, and for me to feel loved. And it goes back to that sense of abandonment, and if I were to falter or walk slightly off of that very fine line, then I wasn't going to be loved or appreciated accordingly. And
well, and I think that's just honestly our parents trying to like raise us to have the highest standard for ourselves, and them trying to make us feel like, you know, that they believe in us so much that we can be successful and succeed, but it'll end up getting interpreted. Like my mom, I love you, but yes, she put a lot of pressure on me to be this perfect child.
Sure.
And because she put a lot of energy and attention into it, then that means, you know, she was demanding results. You know, she needed to see the fruit of her labor spring up. So, you know, yes, it was definitely you got to be A through Z perfect, and if you're not, why did you not do it? Get things done, you know?
So that said, I've spent my entire life trying to walk this line of, call it pseudo-perfectionism.
Excellence.
Yes.
Call it excellence.
My therapist has told me many times before, you're not a perfectionist, you're an excellentist.
Love it. That is so good.
I know.
Your therapist and I were on the same wavelength.
So, that said, when I make a mistake, say at work, or I miss a meeting, or I didn't send an email, or whatever.
Or you missed that tennis shot.
Or even in tennis, I beat myself up because I have this unrealistic expectation for myself. And in doing so, that I hold myself with such rigidity to walk this certain path, when my partner also doesn't rise up to that level of excellentist, I then have trouble with my partner. And this is something I've probably not spent much time working on, but as I'm now in a healthier relationship, well, the healthiest relationship I've ever been in,
right?
I can focus and change that lens of this is how I need to look forward to, and I need to give myself grace, and by doing so, giving my partner grace. But if I can't give myself grace, I can't administer grace out. Correct.
Yeah, I can't give you don't have. That's actually really good. I think a lot of it too is finding our identity in Scripture, in Christ. You know, that's a lot of it. That yes, we grew up with an identity that you have to be X, Y, or Z to accomplish and be loved and successful. But that we have a different way that we can find who we are supposed to be and live comfortably in that,
Right.
actually feel a peace about us. That's what changed me a lot, because yes, my first relationship, I would say the reason why that one was so far off the mark is because our expectations for each other were insane. Just, I expected her to be somebody totally different, and I thought that, I could help make those changes, and then when they didn't happen, we just lost purpose. So, but is there a rule book on this? I mean, is there some just sure shot kind of method that we can find for guidance on, how to prepare ourselves? I mean, I know there's a lot of books out there. I know we're talking about it.
There's plenty of self-help books out there. Not a single one that I would recommend other than
our show,
the Holy
obviously.
Bible. Kind of a big deal. I don't know. It's been around for 2,000 years or so. Just pick it up and take a gander every once in a while.
The Bible for sure.
Yeah, so there's plenty of passages that you can go to help guide what a relationship looks like, both on your behalf and what your partner's behalf comes down to. Did you have one in particular you wanted to bring up?
So I would say the main book and chapter that have really spoken to me to get me ready for a relationship, because that was so much of my 20s, was I just wasn't prepared, and I didn't even know how to prepare myself for a relationship. So as I got into my 30s and I just spent more time with God, hey, show me where I'm supposed to learn this stuff. Ephesians 5, I mean, basically that whole book, that whole chapter in Ephesians is about, walking in love, and then the roles of a wife and a husband, and more about the husbands, and guys, mostly talking to you, that's really where you're going to learn, okay, so if this is what I'm supposed to be like as a husband, how do I even get myself ready to want to be that? Because obviously you're going to be dating first, you're going to be in that relationship first, but you got to be practicing for that before you get there. Because if you're I'm going to do all that stuff when I'm married, that doesn't work.
No,
I mean, it's too little, too late, and you're always going to feel like you're in catch up. You're not going to be the confident, secure man that you need to be.
It's no different than anything else. You need to do as you preach. You need to practice to be perfect. And if you think that all of a sudden you put a ring on a finger, that your mindset in your relationship's going to turn, no. Dating, courtship is the practice to showcase what that marriage actually looks like.
Yeah, and that transition should be just as seamless as the time.
Seamless, yes,
that when
correct.
you go from today I was her boyfriend and tomorrow I'm her husband, that should be a smooth kind of move through it. That
Right.
that the wedding is just a day to celebrate that, but you've been practicing and preparing and understanding that. So Ephesians 5, definitely huge on talking about, again, what love is supposed to be every day that you live your life. And a lot of it, again, is how you're just supposed to live in love for everybody, that you develop healthy strategies for understanding what love is, right? And then the follow-up to that is 1 Corinthians 13, which is all the attributes of love, right? And I actually have my Bible open here, but so it's like love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy or boast, it's not arrogant or rude, it does not insist on its own way, it is not irritable or resentful, it does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things, and love never ends. I mean, that's a pretty, if you can actually get yourself to understand what that is and do all those things before you tell someone I love you, that's a pretty big one. Because when you tell someone I love you, you got to know what that means, and that's what that means,
Yeah. And I would even say you take a step out of just a relationship. God's love for us is abundant.
Is that.
Yeah. And we are to emulate what God has done for us.
Right.
And
we're made in His image.
In or out of a relationship, we, as God-fearing individuals, are to love the masses in that capacity.
Like that.
Yes.
So, and that's another thing, right? Is if you can't have healthy friendships where you're portraying this, guess what? You're not going to have a healthy relationship doing this either. Because again, the relationship is even more intense. It's even more complicated, and you have to be even more well versed in this than a friendship. So you can practice these different attributes with a friend, with people that you just spend time with every day, your family, your friends. Again, all of this preparation.
That's right.
Before you even... So you see, there's so much time that needs to pass where you're practicing all these things before it's like, hey, well, now I'm ready to, have a relationship with somebody.
And I would just say on that topic alone, it goes back to you need to be right with who you are as an individual. You need to be healthy and whole and not have resentment or... I mean, we all bring baggage to a relationship. Mm-hmm. I bring baggage to our friendship. You bring baggage to our friendship. It's hard
to... It's a carry-on, okay? It's not that much. Let's be real.
Is it?
Fits in that backpack I brought, okay?
Well, goodbye widescreen.
Yeah, we just lost the widescreen.
Yeah, okay. That's okay. Which is funny because as we were doing our short today,
right?
It recorded for
much longer than that.
Much longer, yeah. So we'll have to figure out what's
still figuring out why that thing is a funky mess.
I think I've actually been spending some time thinking about. I'm going to get an actual video camera and not use the mirrorless.
Okay.
Sony Alpha for recording. Anyway, we totally digress. Sorry for that.
We're doing it live.
We're doing it live, baby. Ultimately, you need to be healthy with yourself and bring healthy habits into a relationship. Yes. And if you, and don't get me wrong, I've done this too. You're bouncing from relationship to relationship thinking that, oh, this person was wrong or this person was wrong or this person wasn't the right fit.
That's so true.
At the end of the day, you got to flip the script and go, what are the same challenges that I've had in every single relationship? And what is the common denominator? It's me.
Exactly, it's me. And that's something too that I feel like God challenged me on so much because I came out of my last relationship with actually a lot of good reasons to be pointing the finger at the other person, but I still had to then dial all of that back and say, and just not even think about them and think, okay, well, if they were so horrible, well, why did I let that happen? Like, what did I do to put myself in a situation where all of those things, and that was kind of last week's episode with just all the red flags that, just didn't pay attention to. But, as you can see, there's so much time and energy and effort that you have to put into yourself, which again, that's another reason why people jump into relationships, because they take 1 second to look at themselves, go, yeah, I don't like what this is. Can someone validate me, please? And they're like just going around looking for a relationship so they feel validated and loved. And hey, that's a red flag right there.
Yeah. And that
don't do that.
That's another point too, is the fact of, are you going into a relationship because you're trying to mask whatever struggles you are going through so you don't have to deal with oneself? I have a friend who is exclusively in a codependent relationship, and he goes from codependent relationship to codependent relationship.
Oh. Like quick turnarounds, or do they have long relationships?
Long relationships, but it's not healthy, and it's because he doesn't want to deal with his own internal demons, and so by going from one to the X to the next, that's funny.
I like
one
that.
To the X to the next.
Yeah, I like that. Wow. Put that on a shirt.
You don't ever deal with your own internal drama. You're letting someone else mask your drama.
And it's painful.
No different than the sex thing we talked about last week. You utilize sex to mask whatever drama you have internally in your relationship. Yeah. Now you're in a codependent relationship utilizing that person to mask your own internal drama.
Exactly. And it is painful. That, guys, like, don't think that all this stuff is necessarily easy. That's why really nobody talks about it. Like, taking that time to sit there and even just realizing that you're broken, that is, what's the first step in knowing you have a problem is admitting you have a problem, right? Or fixing it. That whole idea, that's a universal truth for a reason, because if you've had a string of bad relationships like either of us, then if you just keep blaming somebody else and it's not going to change. So you have to say, well, what problem do I have? Just start with that. What problem do I have that's causing this cycle to keep repeating itself? Then you have a chance to start addressing those things. But it is tough. You have to do the work. You have to put the time in to like he was saying, get through these demons, get through the pain that you've had and all of that, and just force yourself to admit that I don't need a relationship right now. I need to get myself just to be
healthy and whole first. Yeah. And you know, it is difficult and it is painful, but it's also because you didn't learn that behavior in one night. That is learned behavior that you've been exhibiting for probably your whole life. And it all really kind of comes down to how you were raised in the home, because your parents are a direct reflection on raising you to what they feel is right. And I was raised by two awesome parents, Mom and Mike, and I was able to see things through their lens. But it's through their lens on who I am. Their signature is handwritten on me. But once I left the house, the nest, and I go out into the world, I'm in all sorts of dysfunctional relationships. And then I think that becomes the norm. So there's a little bit, you know, the seed is planted with what your parents had ingrained in you, and then you take that seed and it flourishes into whatever kind of dysfunction you bring into your life. And it goes back to what you said about the friends you keep close. Yeah. They're all everyone is influential.
Yeah, like, who's your hero, right? Like, where we get that guidance from, I guess, is it always starts out with, if you're looking for guidance from anywhere but either like scripture or your own like walk with God, or somebody that is an example of that. If you're looking to just a secular relationship, or if you're looking to, you know, Hollywood, I think it's funny because a lot of people look at Hollywood relationships and they think that there's something to that. You know, any of those things are gonna have so many gaps and pitfalls that aren't even addressed, and again cause you to just keep repeating those mistakes because you're not going to the source of good, healthy information.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as men, what is our litmus test for dating? And if so, why do we use it, Carver?
So I think the most, like, when you can look at your relationship, let's say you've done the work, you're feeling healthy, you're feeling fresh, and right, and you want to now fresh. Yes, and you want to get yourself, or like, again, your heart's opened up, you understand just, again, what you're looking for. Oh, let's say you do all that work, and you want to get into a relationship with somebody very early on. You have to ask yourself, you know, either like when as friends or as when you start dating, what is the purpose here? I think that's really like what the litmus test would be for a relationship, is what is the purpose of this relationship? And again, spending the time doing the work to understand that in its entirety, right? Because if the purpose of your relationship is to satisfy yourself, or
wrong,
right? That throw that one out. That didn't work, you know. Or if it's to gain, like, just take something from the other person, right? So many, like, again, even I know if you're listening to this and you think about, okay, what's the purpose in the relationship I'm in right now? If you think about it and it sounds wrong in your head, it's wrong. Exactly. You know, you have to be able to have a very genuinely healthy, like, constructive purpose that's not selfish, that is, again, all those attributes of love, to be ordered to then, because then you can always fall back on that, you know, because that's when your relationship, it's not about sex, it's not about how that person looks, it's not about how you feel when you're with them, it's about, hey, what are we doing together, even as friends, dating, whatever. You can use this for any relationship that you have, any friendship you have. What's the purpose? Why am I hanging out, spending time with this person?
100% agree. I think another good litmus test for a relationship is when you do get into a disagreement or an argument, how does your partner combat that battle? Is it
like their stance?
Yeah. Is it argumentative? Is it swearing? Is it yelling? Is it dysfunctional?
I think that would even be like kind of peeling back the layers of how the relationship was built, right? Because if 90% of the time, or like in times of peace, everything is peaceful, that's just surface level what your relationship is. But then when conflict arises, yes, how each party handles that conflict is more of what that relationship was built on, right? And again, you need to be able to have a solid foundation to lean back on that you've built in that relationship to handle these situations in a healthy way.
My very close friend Dana had saw me go through this particular relationship.
Which one?
With a gal.
Okay.
We'll just call her a gal. I don't have some pseudo name to give her right now.
Okay. We can do Jane. What's wrong with Jane?
All right. So Dana watched me go through this relationship with Jane, and Jane was constantly scheduling like mini vacation, weekend getaways, trips on vacations, and
that reminds me of a lot of movies I've seen where that stuff happens.
And as I go through this, I was, obviously feeling good about the relationship. And she goes, Jeff, everyone is going to have a great time on vacation. But it's in the conflict that you truly learn who someone is. Yeah. And that's why I bring up this litmus test of how you argue or how you have good. Conflict really shows the true character of someone, because anyone can be happy in peace. But It's when war comes up and how you reconcile your differences, whatever that dispute is, really showcases someone's true character.
That's so good. Yes, I love that.
All right, so you have on here the prayer problem. Care to elaborate on this?
Yes. So the prayer problem for me is that in the unhealthy relationships that I was in, again, friendships, dating, old marriages, like when I would want to pray about those relationships, I basically couldn't, because that really brings you to the table with God of, like, again, why am I in this relationship and what do I want out of it? And if you can't sit down and have a dialogue with God about your relationship, because you already know it's wrong and you already know there's so much that is just selfish and needy, again, that's a great way to know that the relationship you're in has serious problems at a core level. And that was a big thing for me, is I could never have a genuine conversation with God about the relationships I had been in, because that exposed the truth. It just shined that light right in there. So I basically at those moments I had to choose. Well, do I rectify this thing and get closer to God so I can have a dialogue with him about it, or do I just walk away from God? And well, we all know how many times.
So it doesn't sound like that's a problem. That sounds like that's an internal conflict that you're having to either own that the relationship is unhealthy, and that relationship has steered you off from your relationship with God. Yes. And it sounds like that was you coming to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, too far down the path, so to speak.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like I couldn't spend time with the Lord and have those relationships.
I'll tell you, in my experience with, to use your analogy here, the prayer problem, whenever I've come to God asking for clarity, I'm frustrated at my partner or my spouse, it always came back to not her problem.
Oh, no.
But back to my problem.
It's painful.
It is painful. But again, you didn't learn that behavior overnight. You haven't exhibited that behavior once. You've exhibited that behavior and you've cultivated a relationship to have that negative. It's a lot of work. It does hurt. There's a lot of self-reflection. Yeah. There's a lot of, checking yourself, or as I like to say, falling on the sword that needs to occur.
Yeah.
And if you're not ready to own your problem and your drama that you bring to the situation, you can't throw that baggage on your partner when it's your baggage in the first place. And you're taking that carry-on from relationship to relationship.
Right. Well, I think that's a great segue to the next point, is just how much yourself. I know we talked about it a little bit in the pre-show, and I know that you wanted to speak about this, but that's a great tie-in, I think, for what are you willing to do to, like, make a segue.
Yeah, so my last relationship with Karen, and
These chairs are really nice, by the way.
I sacrificed a lot of myself in my mind's mind for the betterment of our relationship. So much, in fact, that I I was almost changing who I was
Yeah.
for thought that that would better our relationship. Therefore, I put our relationship in a higher level than I did for God, in a higher level than I did for myself, and I made that the epicenter of my life. And I sacrificed friendships because of that relationship. And so this is where I go back to, we talked about this either episode 1 or maybe it was your testimony. No, actually it was 3.1.
Was it?
In regards to you at the core are Carver.
Yeah.
No one should ask at the core to change Carver. Now, are there things we should shed and we could be better and we could be more communicative?
Inspire each other to be better?
Right. Yes. But your partner should never want to change you at the core. And if they do, then that partnership just isn't going to work out.
Right.
Period. End of story. Because what happens is if you start changing for your partner on core qualities, characteristics that are instinctually built inside of you, then you at some juncture will have resentment for your partner because you've now changed for them, and one day you're going to wake up going, no, I'm done trying to be who you want me to be.
Yeah.
I need to be who I'm going to be.
And it becomes like, because you have to look at it too, like who's leading the relationship at that point, like what is leading the relationship. And I think in that moment, it's not even so much the person trying to change the other that's leading the relationship. It's just expectations, like just this darkness that's like at the front of the relationship where both people, again, nobody's really leading. Just one person sets the expectation for what you need to be, and then you're looking at that expectation, resenting it. And again, there's no real core leadership at that point. It's just this idea of how things need to be in order for us to be happy, right?
And we do need to, and we'll address this much greater next week. But at the every relationship, you need to have one leader, one head. You can't have two heads trying to run the relationship. Sure, there's ebbs and flows in who has leadership and what attribute, but there needs to be one person that kind of guides that direction. And if you are foregoing who you are as a person and letting someone else tell you who you are as a person, fundamentally that's not right.
And that's why I think too, like relationships, guys, like healthy relationships, again, this can be friends too, like guys, girls, and then like the obviously like on the dating side of it, there has to be fulfillment, right? You have to feel like a part of you is getting fulfilled, is, that going back to the faucets and the drains, every relationship that you should be in should have that purpose where both people are getting fed, like where both people are able to, again, grow. Iron sharpens iron.
That's right. Yep.
We should be always trying to look at each other in a selfless way, make each other have the desire to have everybody around us improve, and that you keep that mentality that builds a lifelong friend. And of course, when you look at that in the dating lens, that you bring those same elements to the table. That I want you to feel empowered, I want you to feel successful and fulfilled and satisfied. Yes, there's one person leading the relationship, but you don't really even feel it. Right? It's just because everything's working naturally as intended.
It's organic at that point, right? Yeah. If it feels force-fed, then it just doesn't work.
That's where it falls apart.
So let's talk about characteristics, attributes, call it your top 5 list. And I'm not asking you for your top 5 list, but
man.
Let's talk about list. Carver Tripp's list secularly and now spiritually.
So it definitely... It changed a lot. So when I was in like my early, I'd say late teens, early 20s, my list was basically...
These are comfy chairs.
They're so nice. Just this is good. So my list basically consisted of acceptance, right? Because as you were alluding to from growing up, I had basically put myself... And I say that because it was my own mental state, that I had put myself in such a pressure cooker throughout my life that, I have to do these 100 things to just be happy and feel comfortable with myself, that I got so blown out of that. Like I needed to find a relationship where I could be anything I wanted to be, and that would be okay. Right? Very unhealthy. I mean, saying it feels disgusting, but that was what I was looking for. I just wanted to be accepted, in whatever I was, and that's that. And again, I could even say that was the purpose of my relationship, that I would be with somebody that accepted me in any capacity.
Yeah.
And so that list, obviously, it was a very short list, but that's what led to my first relationship. And of course, that didn't work, so I said, okay, I need to redo this list. It has to look different. It has to be a little more well thought out. So I looked at it and I said, okay, I need to create this is all secular list. I need to create a list where if this person fulfills these items, that's somebody that I could love, and I could put all of my passion and attention and energy into that, and it would be worth it, right? This is the person that deserves all of my love and affection.
Is this list that you're talking about second marriage?
Second marriage,
okay.
Right. So it was, so of course I looked, so then
that were fairly recent lists then.
Well, this would be like my mid-20s.
Oh, okay.
That list, right? Okay. That I started to generate that list, and we started dating again. I was like mid-late 20s. So this was, like late 20s. Anyway, so the list that I came up with at that time was, I'd say like 70% like personality, like physical attraction and personality. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, if I can be with somebody that, is hot, right? Because every guy that's with a woman that's just attractive, that's what makes a relationship last. Obviously.
Duh.
And of course, it's a guidance thing too. It was who I was looking to for guidance on how to make this work. And, again, I don't mean to throw my parents under the bus, but hey, you guys, I know one thing my dad always said is he was always very attracted to my mom, that she was always just somebody like firecracker in his life kind of thing. So I said, well, obviously then that's super important, and I have to prioritize that appropriately.
Prioritizing it appropriately is the operative word there, because if you make it too big of a focus, then you're not dealing with the characteristics that actually complement our partner. And you're putting too much emphasis on the physicality. And not to say I haven't done the same thing, because I most certainly have done the same thing.
So it was the majority of it. Go ahead.
But I was just going to say, too, you have to be physically attractive.
You have to be.
There's life is balance, right? And if you go so far one way and you're like, well, X, Y, and Z, she fulfills everything, but I can't.
I'm going to get to that in a little bit.
It's a tough situation.
I'm going to get to that. Yeah. Okay. So when you have that list, like that just secular list, and you say, okay, they have to be physically attractive. These are like, again, 70% of it was that. Then a lot of it was like personality. She has to be smart. She has to do these things for me. She has to be smart. She has to like capture me mentally. I have to be intrigued, to be able to have good dialogue together. We have to be able to not just enjoy spending time together, but be able to like discuss things. Again, like, be that kind of that faucet that we can have like time.
Fill it up. Yep.
Time together that's intriguing and fulfilling and satisfying. So I put this nice long list together, and I met my second wife. We were dating at the time, and man, she checked all the boxes. All the boxes. So I thought, obviously,
wrap it up.
This is it. Like, this is the person that fulfills all these different things, and because, again, the physical was so part of it. We did not wait to have sex for very long. It was like...
How long are we talking about?
2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
It was 2 weeks. The first relationship...
Oh, okay. So, from first starting to date to a sexual encounter was 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, whereas, like, my first marriage was probably a few months. This one was, just a couple of weeks. And that... And, as soon as... And it's so funny that as soon as the sexual like relationship started, all the red flags started popping up, right? And again, interesting how that worked. Yeah, as you said, the conflict resolution was awful. We did not know how to resolve conflicts at all. The purpose was just like ambiguous, right? We didn't really know like why we were together. Just again, we both checked each other's boxes,
right?
So that's good enough, right?
It's like in professional sports. Like on paper, one team is so crystal clear the definitive winner,
or
will be the definitive winner.
All the stats.
Based on the stat sheet.
But No
but
chemistry.
the chemistry there just doesn't work. It doesn't fit, and it doesn't matter how awesome or what the batting average is. If you don't have that internal chemistry on a team, it will not work.
Yeah, so that was really... So then obviously after that, and I realized it too, after some time had gone by, that like, man, that list sucked, you know? So then I started changing my list, obviously.
Are you still in the relationship?
No, oh no. That way over. I mean, no, that was my second marriage.
That was your second list. Now we're on...
Now, so then I transitioned off of like secular lists because I realized how flawed and broken they are, just as flawed as broken as I am. To say, okay, God, like let's look at these spiritual lists, and even what would a biblical list be, and then looking at Proverbs 31, Ephesians 5, 1 Corinthians 13, and my list changed to godly attributes or biblical attributes, and I kind of just. Again, I didn't look at... So the first thing I missed was being equally yoked. Like, that was huge. Because you can meet somebody that has a lot of biblical characteristics and has a lot of things that they are spiritually passionate about, but you're still just not on the same page.
Right.
And then I... so there was like a mixture of that, a mixture of like, well, I didn't want any physical thing in there. I had no physical things on my list. And I'd meet somebody, and I'm like, oh, look, again, it was like, even God, I felt like, was showing me, well, hey, if that's the list you're coming up with, well, this is what that looks like. And I'm like, oh, okay, no, not that either. And, Jeff, honestly, what happened? I just ripped the list up. I just said, you know what, this whole list thing, it's just not for me. Because any list that ultimately I'm going to come up with is not going to be enough. Like, you have to let... God just leads you into that relationship one step at a time. At least that's what it was for me.
Yeah.
I had to just literally tear my lists up and throw them in the trash.
I too will say post-divorce, I came up with my own list. And as I went through different dating relationships, I would step back and evaluate what that list looks like. And go, check, check, check. Big fat red X, check, check, check. X, not even on the discussion, and I go, yeah, but the sex is good. Like, right? You just make a hall pass for these different things, no different than what I say, to mask whatever drama or situations come up, and that just wasn't healthy. So I think back to your point, getting rid of the list. Like, obviously, you still need your top 5 core characteristics to be loving, nurturing, whatever those core characteristics are, but.
All the details.
For like us guys especially, it's like, oh, she's got to have long hair and she's got to dress a certain way. Like, that's all BS, right? And so you brought up Proverbs 31, and I wanted to call out verse 30 specifically. Charm is deceptive, beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And ultimately, when you get down to that core level there, all those other attributes, if they fear the Lord, then they're going to be aligned with the attributes that you're truly looking for in a healthy, productive relationship.
I will 100% say that, because when they are so like in tune with trying to fulfill that will of God, that every moment that they're living in, they're checking themselves against all of the biblical things that they know that they're held accountable to. It's like you don't have to, because that's another thing, right? We always feel like we have to police the other person in the relationship. All of that goes away. All that goes away. So when you're really set and you have your like Christ-like identity, you have your biblical values, you're constantly checking yourself against that thing. She's checking herself against her same identity. When the conflict comes up, you almost say, okay, well, hold on. Let me go and figure out what I'm doing wrong here, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it, right? That's such a healthy conflict resolution.
Right.
Instead of, well, let me tell you everything you did wrong in this moment.
Right.
That just goes away. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And again, like, and the nice thing about when you let God build your list and you just kind of have that moment of submission that, you know what, God, whatever you think is right, when you finally give up.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Just to talk about that, yes, there's always those expressions of like, Jesus, take the wheel. I'm going to sit in the driver's seat, but Jesus, you're sitting in the passenger seat. You can hold the wheel. I have tried to get to a point in my life where I'm like, I'm gonna sit in the back seat. You just do whatever. I'm just gonna sit in the back seat and chill and relax, and wherever we're going, you just let me know, and I'm just gonna relax back here.
Right.
Because that is so much easier, and it's very satisfying. It's very good, because then when you end up in that relationship, and every like relationship that you see somebody, Jeff, I'm sure you've seen this. You see two people and they're like so perfect together, it makes you sick. You're like, what's the thing that's wrong there?
There's some underlying negativity that's not being addressed.
There's no way anybody could be that happy. It's impossible. That when you really like talk to those people, they'll just tell you straight up that I wasn't really looking. God brought it all together, and it's everything I wanted and more. That it's like more than any list that they could have thought of. And that's probably the best feeling in the world, that as you slowly get to know somebody, you're like, wow, I didn't even know I wanted that in a person, and they have it, and that's amazing.
G and I have had this very discussion many times.
Right.
And even though, like, that list is so small, all the other things, the sub-bullet points that you still had up here, but it lost its strength, right? You
gave it up.
You wanted the core.
You gave it up.
But the sub-bullet points weren't as strong of a need in a relationship. And then you find that partner, or God delivers that partner to your life. You're like, it really does check everything off the box. Even though that list is, ripped up and thrown in the shredder. So
exactly. But it's and again, that's like one of the most amazing things. You're like, even that secret list that you didn't even want to talk about because you thought it's just being too greedy or something, that all of those kind of come true. So let's try to wrap this up. So Jeff, do you feel like you had to go through all the bad relationships that you had, friends, relationships, dating? Did you feel like you had to go through all those to end up where you are now?
Yeah, I think no matter what transpires in your life, trials and tribulations cultivate who you are as a person. And as I alluded to earlier in the podcast, that I'm very stubborn, and it takes me many tries before I give up that stubbornness. And I absolutely needed to go through a very hard divorce, a very destructive relationship, for me to not only relinquish who I am and what I think I need in a partnership, but I needed to be broken before I could just free will give it to God. And in doing so, now I have this awesome partner in my life that I would have never thought I would have had something this great before. And so I 100% needed to go through those trials and tribulations to end up out of the light. You ever seen the movie Shawshank Redemption?
Yes.
It's my favorite movie of all times. And
it's a pretty heavy movie.
You see Tim Robbins be convicted of this crime that he did not do. And he was wrongfully imprisoned for life.
Yeah.
And when I just love the symmetry of him breaking free out of prison, and he ends up in Mexico, and he has all this money that he was able to, siphon off the top from this very corrupt warden, and he's in Mexico just living his best life. And I almost feel like that was me in past relationships of being confined to this unhealthy particular spot in my life. And when I got broke, in like rock bottom broke, Carver, to where I felt like I was walking through that tunnel of
the poop tunnel.
Thank you. And coming out of that tunnel, falling into water, washing that off, and just this visual of him holding up his hands like, thank you for freeing me. I feel like that's where I am today. And it couldn't have been done if I wasn't locked up in Shawshank for 38 years.
All those years. Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. And that's the work, guys. I wanted that to be kind of where we close, because if you're in one of those situations now where you just feel like you're either in prison or you're trying to do the work to get yourself to a better, you're crawling through that tunnel, that just keep going, and use the people around you, or again, us, please. Like, there have been a couple people that have reached out to me because of our episodes. Like, you can talk to us. Like, we're doing this to help out anybody who's in those moments. If you're crawling through and you just need to talk to somebody about it, like, we're right here. We don't do this for our own selfish thing. Like, we literally started this just to get some just good information, or just, again, share our lives so that we could help you guys.
Yeah. And we're not licensed therapists or psychiatrists. No. We're not claiming to be, but, just talking and having dialogue with someone else and sharing whatever you're going through is so healthy. And
especially if you're in that time of need where you're just in a rough spot. Like I said, I had somebody reach out to me and want to have a dialogue just based on the relationship that he feels like he's in the prison right now.
From the podcast.
Which
is awesome, yeah.
Yeah, he feels like he's in prison and he doesn't really know what to do. And once he kind of told me about that, and I could see, see how he feels, and even got to like meet his partner, it was so obvious. I'm like, man, I've literally lived that guy's life, and I really opened up the compassion of my heart to just want to just do whatever I could to help him, because you don't have to live like that, you just don't, and getting to the other side of that is why we're doing this.
That's right.
100%.
So we are gonna 100% land the plane because we are so far over time, but that's obviously it was great dialogue here, and I'm happy about it. So join us next week, episode 5, where we will totally land the plane on the relationship value here. And I will say,
a happy episode next week.
It will be very positive and optimistic. I will say this for the folks watching us on YouTube. Thank you again. Please like and subscribe.
Yes.
We just recently got on Apple Podcasts, so if you are driving and cannot pull up the YouTube and you are driving around, I know podcasts, audio channels only are a little bit easier, so we're on Spotify and now Apple Music as well.
Just search Kirk and Carver and we'll pop up.
Absolutely. So have a blessed week. Thank you for joining us so much. I'm Kirk, he's Carver, and we out.
Peace.